Welcome to Woburn Abbey. This weekend, agents afield are at the Woburn Abbey Garden Show. It's in its 9th year and it promises to be something special. Not a bad view really, eh? So our next guest is a woman that was born with green fingers. She joined RHS Wisley in 1985 to run the plant pathology department. In 98 she joined BBC, began working for Alan Titchmarsh's daytime live slot.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah.
Gosh, you got it all.
And then for 13 plus years you were a regular at Gardener's World and you were full of horticultural gems and advice for us. Obviously you've dipped your toe into radio and hosted various garden shows, not to mention writing for garden related publications and of course your own books. If you don't recognise the face, where have you been, then you definitely will recognise the voice. A regular panellist on BBC's Radio 4's Gardener's Question Time. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the wonderfully knowledgeable and incredibly talented Pippa Greenwood.
Oh, that's an introduction. I like that. Should we start it?
Oh, yeah. How's that? Was that all right?
Gosh, yeah. No, it sounds quite scary. Doesn't it?
Thank you for coming along. I really
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
No, do you know, I love being here, so whatever.
Great. I was going to ask you, you appeared here last year.
Yes,
You're back again this year.
yes.
What brings you back to Woburn Abbey?
Well, I don't know if they've told you the full truth. I've actually been at the Woburn Abbey Garden Show. I think it's for 8 years now.
8 years.
And I can't help it. I
You're
love it.
addicted.
So I am. This is the garden show,
You're right.
which is something very, very special.
Yeah.
It's set in, as you will have noticed, the most extraordinary grounds.
Yeah.
I mean, they are beautifully looked after, but in a very relaxed way.
Even
It's-
like when you get to know the guys and the girls on the stalls, you don't
Yeah.
just sort of, oh, I like that, can I buy that? They've got a story to tell, or they've got some sort of gardening advice. It's not just the exchange.
That's so important, but that's
Yeah.
what makes it a really good garden
Yeah.
show, because not only, to my mind, would it be worth coming here for the day just to wander around the gardens, and if you come to the show itself, the private gardens are also open as well, which they aren't normally, but the nursery stands. You know, we do gardening demos, gardening talks, a garden Q&A session at the end of the day to get people along to join in, but without even attending those, which I always hope people will do anyway, and they do seem to come in good numbers, just by going to the nursery stands, you can learn such a lot, because these are proper growers
Yeah.
who grow the plants, who know the plants, and you can walk up with no gardening knowledge at all and say something like, you know, I've got this horrible dry shady spot in my garden because of next door's tree. Is there anything, or would this plant here that I've fallen in love with actually grow? And they can tell you, and they can advise you on other things.
lovely,
And so
isn't it?
it's like a walking kind of plant encyclopedia with living illustrations
Yeah.
and a smile on the end.
That's it. It's
So
a smile, isn't it?
it
Everyone's
is, yeah.
smiling here. I don't know.
No,
What
it's
I thought it was
gorgeous.
the weather, but no, people actually smile here.
Oh,
right.
yes.
Because I was going to say, obviously, you know the grounds quite well, but is there
Mm.
any part of the estate or planting area that you kind of really?
Well, the great thing about Woburn Abbey Gardens is that actually there's constantly a few tweaks and changes going on, and very often there's a new area being redeveloped or opened up, but wherever you go it's gorgeous. And actually some of my favourite are probably what would be regarded as the less spectacular. I love some of the herbaceous borders,
Yeah.
you know, the mixed borders. They're absolutely beautiful, and the kitchen garden is often really lovely as well.
Yeah.
And then you just look around and there's some fantastic trees here. I love trees. And you know, wherever you look at them, they're just absolutely beautiful.
I know. It's taken a lot of hard work to get to this point.
It does, and the funny thing is, talking about hard work, is everybody that works here that I've ever met, and maybe they're on good behaviour, but they seem to be having a pretty good time, even though they're working really hard. There's a big seeming enjoying their job, which is quite unusual, and really friendly, really helpful. And you see them dealing with visitors too at the show, and everybody is treated like they're somebody special, and that's really lovely.
That's what you want. You're always busy. You're either on the radio, you're writing, or you're doing something. How's this year been for you? Has it been another busy year? Or?
Yes, it has, and it's been a lovely year. But what's so lovely about my job is I do a wide range of things, from, as you say, writing, doing bits of presenting, certainly a lot on Gardener's Question Time, which is gorgeous. I love doing that. And we've turned 70 recently as well. So we've done well, really. We're looking quite good. but also doing lots of gardening talks and things. So, and demos in garden centres and sort of things. So, and obviously shows like this. And that's great, because it brings you out in amongst the best people in the world. And that's gardeners.
That's it.
And it's gorgeous because, it's a varied job. And I have my own website now, which is lovely because it was my own sort of little baby that I've nurtured from nothing to quite something. So it's great. I do like a garden advice service from there, and all sorts of really useful gardening products and things that I care about. I'm really not into using chemicals in the garden and things. So, I do all the biological controls that you can use to control your slugs or your vine weevils or the, ladybirds that you can introduce into your garden, and things which will do the job, but in an environmentally friendly, totally way. And that's kind of how I was brought up. You said born with green fingers. It was really my mother that had the green fingers, and they sort of infiltrated onto me. And she was very into things being, ecologically friendly before it became trendy. So it's kind of infiltrated from the beginning.
That's great. That's wonderful. I had one last question. Like I said, you've been busy this year. You've been doing the shows. Has there been for you one plant or one shrub or tree this season that made you go, oh my God, I've got to have that?
Wow. Well, at home, one thing I've noticed, it seems to be having an absolute field day at all the corners. Those lovely shrubs which have got a sort of, they almost look like someone's draped a creamy white cloth over a mound when they're in flower, with all those beautiful bracts, and they are looking absolutely stunning. And so, yes, but when you look around here, then you fall in love all over again.
I know.
It's funny, I think when it comes to plants, yes, this lady's heart does bear transplanting easily. I've wandered around. In fact, Woburn have been really sweet. They've allowed a special award called Pippa's Plant Award, and it's going to be the thing which I've basically fallen for this year at the show. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but it's gorgeous. I've been wandering around all the nurseries in the gaps, looking at the plants and just seeing what's there, and it, just everything. There are so many gorgeous plants at the moment, but it's a good year for a lot of things.
It really is. Look, I know you've got to dash off. There's someone waiting off camera for you. There's a big tent waiting for you. Pippa, it's been an absolute thrill to meet you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Lovely. No, really
You're a
lovely
big favourite of our blog, Agents of Field. So to meet you,
Great.
Soph's off camera hiding, but she's like, oh, we're going to meet Pippa.
No,
so thank you.
Lovely to meet
and
you.
Have a great weekend.
Yeah, same to you.
Thank you. So I am joined with, fair to say, the head gaffer, the top man.
That's right.
The man that knows the land, as it were. This is Martin Towsey.
That's correct.
Martin, for the guys and girls who don't know, would you like to tell us a bit about yourself, what you do here, and how you ended up at Woburn Abbey?
Okay, so I'm Martin Towsey, the Estates Gardens Manager, and my role is to look after all horticultural elements for the Duke and Duchess, wherever they might be in any of the business apparatus or the private areas that they own. My starting career was at Nottingham City Council as an apprentice gardener, which I did for 3 years, moving around Nottingham City Council, doing various applications, and then going to the local college to actually do my sitting guilds in horticulture. That took 3 years. Then I became a greenkeeper at the Nottingham City Council's golf course. That went on for 2 years, and then I went back to the college to actually be their technician. So I put all the practicals together for all the lectures, and then eventually became a lecturer in horticulture, and then applied for the position here at Woburn and came to Woburn 14 years ago.
Wow.
Yes.
That's a big CV.
It's built as long as it's gone.
I was going to say, for people who are not familiar with Woburn Abbey, I mean, can you give us maybe a bit of a sort of history of the place and,
Yeah, sure, yeah.
you know, when you took the estate on, what sort of state it was actually in?
Right, so if you peel there's many layers to Woburn in terms of the Woburn Abbey site itself. If you take it right back to its beginning, is the monks actually decided to build an abbey here due to the fact that there's lots of springs in this area,
Right.
and they needed the water for their ponds and fish and hygiene methods and things like that. So they built an abbey here. Then Henry VIII obviously decided, well, I'm going to take your abbey off you.
Yeah.
So he took the abbey and he dispersed it between his friends and family into the aristocracy. That's when the Earl of Bedford actually got Woburn Abbey as it is today. So then different heirs of the Earl of Bedford actually start putting their different layers on, all the way through to the current Duke of Bedford, which is the 15th Duke of Bedford, and they've actually been restoring the gardens back to the 6th Duke of Bedford's time.
Right.
And the reason for that is Humphrey Repton landscaped Woburn Abbey Gardens. Now 14 years ago when we started the restoration process, the gardens were I'd probably say something like they weren't really cared for in terms of the way they are
Right.
today. And the reason for that is the owners of the time, their emphasis was in different areas of the estates, mainly with horse racing and stud work and things like that. So the gardens were a little bit dilapidated, and so therefore we started the restoration process over the last 14 years of putting them back to a Humphrey Repton landscape. So that's how it's actually evolved over those various years.
And you said it was what, 15 years ago. I mean, when someone says this is now your job,
Yeah.
you know that fella, Humphrey Repton?
Yes, right.
Do that. I mean,
Do that,
where do you start?
Well, I think the first year of any garden is you have to kind of like live with the garden for a year. You don't know where the bulbs are.
Yeah.
You don't know what the trees are going to do. You know, various flowering opportunities there are around the garden. So over the first year, we just actually looked at the garden in terms of the things that we wanted to do, see where the flowers were actually going to be, see where the bulbs were, let some of the longer grass grow again to see where the wild flowers are as well, because that's important to us at Woburn. It's not just to do a backdrop that's like a clinical horticultural backdrop. We have to look at the biodiversity as well, and that's why we leave the top end of the garden as a biodiversity area, because all the Bedfordshire biodiversity that should be in Bedfordshire is in that area, and we're protecting it by having that there. So it was understanding what the actual garden is, and then setting out a series of 5-year plans to actually then move the project forward. So you're breaking the process right down to small
So it's not all kind of
in one big So the first 5-year plan was get the gardens to a ticket price that was worthy of a ticket, because they were free. People could just wander in, look around the gardens and go out again. In year 3 of that 5-year plan, we got to a ticket price, and we made it quite low. It was only about £3.50 at the time to actually come around the gardens. You could wander around. It was all about the trees to see at that point in time. And then by the end of that 5-year plan, there was something worthy to actually raise the ticket value up and then actually take it on from there. We're currently in the 5th. We're in the 3rd 5-year plan process.
Okay.
So this is where we are today, and we've got 2 more sets of 5-year plans to actually go on to, and that's the series that we've set ourselves to do. And the garden show fits within those plans.
Absolutely. What I was going to say was, I mean, the gardens are stunning.
Brilliant, thank you. It's down to the team. It's
Well,
really
yeah, I mean, the
incredible.
team behind it. I mean,
Yeah.
but I was wondering, you know, when you sort of get Repton's sort of red book out,
Oh, yes,
are you
yeah.
following it to the letter, or are you kind of putting different varieties because they're maybe not
Right,
around
yes,
anymore?
The emphasis was to bring the garden back to a Humphrey Repton garden, and to restore the things that Humphrey Repton had actually brought and put into the actual garden itself. So we're using the Repton Red Book as a reference for all of those activities. Where there is some plantings that may have been older planting schemes, that may well have had things like black spot and various bits and pieces like that that would have made them quite ugly, is we've actually gone for modern varieties. And that's where Grace's application comes in, is that she actually brings colour, texture, taste and direction she'd like the planting to go in. And that's quite good really, because we've still got family making decisions about the actual plant material that goes into the gardens itself. So her Grace's colour palettes are pinks, whites, blues, softer colours. She doesn't like orange, she doesn't like yellow. So they're things we try and avoid within the actual garden. So the principles of the structures is Repton, the principles of the layout is Repton. Some of the colour changes, we've put those through as a Grace's colour palette. And that's how Repton would have done it in those days. He would have always followed the then Duke and Duchess's colour palette to put into the garden.
Because that's what I was going to say. I mean, you talk about the Duchess. I mean, I take it she's heavily influenced, or she's been part of this whole process, and she's
Sir Grace is my line manager.
Right,
so I see her on a 2 weekly basis.
Right.
And we talk about all the various gardens, including this one. And then she, I put options for her to actually go with, and then she goes whichever option she'd like, and then she gives me the colour, texture, taste, direction she'd like that garden to be in, and then me and my team actually make that happen for her. Sometimes she gets involved in actually doing things in the garden.
Right.
She comes out with us to look at other gardens as well, with the whole team from across the whole estate. Every year we go and visit another garden to actually benchmark ourselves for various areas and bits and pieces, and then we take that back to Woburn. So there's some things we've gone to gardens to say, I don't see that, don't ever do that. But there are other things where she says, I really like that, can we make that happen at Woburn? We photograph it, we talk to the head gardener of that particular property, and then we bring that back to Woburn and try and get it into somewhere in the gardens.
One final question.
Sure.
I can hear your walkie-talkie, and everyone's probably screaming, "What's morning? What's morning?" Like I said, you're working these gardens day to day. All the years you've been here, all the gardens you've developed, you've created. Is there a particular flower, tree, shrub, even vegetable that's kind of speaks volumes, or represents this estate?
So I'm lucky enough to live on the estate, so I can walk the dog to this site here, and I do that in the evening. This garden is pitched towards the sun setting, and if you're at the top end of the gardens, there's a Repton temple that's at the top there. We restored it about 3 years ago. If you sit in there, the sun will actually set over the top of the actual abbey. And it lights up the garden into this nice orange hue glow, which is incredible, and it's pitched towards it. And then the cedar tree is at the bottom there, and you just think, well, that cedar tree has been there all that time, and all those various head gardeners and gardeners that have traded through it, and this is our time to actually look after it. And it's really our custodianship of the garden, and it really humbles you really to say, we've got to make sure we're doing it right by sitting there and having a look across what we've actually achieved so far. And with the team, because the team, I couldn't do it without the team. With the team, we want to make sure that we're looking after and making the custodianship of the future of the gardens proceed forwards. But that bench, so that's that bench.
That's Martin's bench.
The bench, looking back at the cedar tree and taking in the actual view.
That's brilliant.
Incredible.
Look, I could keep talking. I really could. I was fascinated. But I know you're a busy man and there's lots to be doing. I just want to say thank you very much.
No problem.
Enjoy the show. Have a great weekend.
Thank you very much for coming.
Thank
you.
I have to say, I'm incredibly thrilled to be in such distinguished company. I can only describe him as a gardening god amongst us green-fingered mortals. Having begun his career under the watchful eye of Jeff Hamilton, from there he set up his own landscaping company, quickly making a name for himself. But alongside the landscaping, this gentleman is also a great teacher. And over the years he's passed his knowledge on through horticulture colleges, and now owns his own house with gardening courses to run. I believe that's right? I got it right so far?
I do. It's very nice.
He's a permanent resident of BBC Gardener's World, and the show is all the better for it. It's clear Jeff Hamilton runs through him like the Force. To quote the man, gardens are about things, people, space, and the shapes that make up that space, plants, and a sense of place. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Jedi Master and garden legend, Mr. Adam Frost. Hello, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for taking the time.
Very kind words. Very kind words.
Honestly, I am very. Speaking to Soap, I was just like, when we knew we could interview you, I was just absolutely thrilled. So it's a real pleasure.
No. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. I know you're a busy man, so we'll cut to the chase.
Brilliant.
So
they've got me around all over the place.
So I'll get started with it. First question: you appeared here last year.
Yeah.
You're back again this year. What brings you back to Woburn Abbey?
I love Woburn anyway. I've known Martin as well, obviously the boss man, for a long time. We talked together back, we reckon 20 plus years ago, I think. So we've already kept in touch. So they invited me last year. It was lovely to come, and and actually Selena and my kids come down as well, and they go off and do safaring.
Right, it's a proper family
and all
event.
that. So they have a lovely time.
Yeah.
And I come here and talk to lots of nice people. So
Great stuff.
why wouldn't you come back?
Exactly. The gardens, I think, are totaling 42 acres. I think it's about 42 acres, give or take. I mean, is there anything particular in the gardens that stands out for you then?
What I love about here at the moment is the fact the whole Repton story, you know, Humphrey Repton, and they're going back to each of these spaces, looking at the old plans and bringing it all back to life. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah,
absolutely fantastic. Yeah.
Because I was going to say, recently you had the privilege, I suppose, of getting to see his actual red book that kind of describes and paints this place.
Yeah, I did. So I did a piece for Gardens World, which will go out in a few weeks' time. But I'll be honest with you, I was a nervous wreck. They took the book out of the glass cabinet, and I'm there, and then I had to have lessons how to open it, and how to open the pages. But they are absolutely incredible. It gave me goosebumps doing it.
Was it like a proper Indiana Jones moment?
Yeah, it was that sort of just that sense of history was incredible, you know. And you think about, you know, he was the man that I suppose made the name landscape gardener. He did all that. He came after Brown. Interesting character.
Yeah. I mean, because he didn't go straight into garden design. I think he was a journalist. He was a dramatist. I think he dipped into politics.
Yeah, he did. He was. He was one of those fellas. The more you learn about him, you think, well, actually, I'd quite like to have a pint with you and find out a little bit more, because he came from. I think his father was a tax collector. And so he was left a small sort of estate type thing. He eventually lost that, ended up in Romford living in a small cottage, and you got this sense that he'd done lots of these different things and then brought them to the party as a gardener. I think you wonder whether he was a sort of he wanted to be an artist really, because it seemed as if the red books were more important than the gardens getting built. Yeah. Does that make sense?
No, it does.
You got that sense, but I think fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, he poured his heart and soul into these books. I mean, a man to do that and have that vision.
And put people in them, put people back in landscapes. And I think what was interesting about him is whereas Brown, in a sense, pushed everything away, he started to bring things back around the house, which I thought, is fascinating. And that's, like being here and thinking back, 150, 160 years ago, people like that were here working. That's incredible.
It's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, what I was going to say, because the chap was, like I said, he was a politician. He was a dramatist. He didn't come into gardening design, I think mid-30s.
I think it was about 37, 38, something like that.
I mean, for people that might be watching this and think, I fancy gardening, I love gardening. Is it fair to say you're never too old if that's the career for you?
No. No. If you love it, then it doesn't matter what age you are.
Yeah.
It really doesn't. And the industry needs people, being honest. So, and I think what I love about it is that it's such a vast subject. So you want to be a gardener and you want to tend and look after gardens, and you can if you want to. You want to be a designer, but if you want to be a scientist, it's all there. You want to be a retailer, whatever. You can do it in a gardening world, so it's brilliant.
That's good. Going with the Repton, Humphrey, I got his name right. Humphrey Repton. I'm going to get in trouble for this.
Yeah.
He talking about Martin.
Yeah.
Who obviously is the gaffer, as it were.
Yeah, the gaffer.
I mean, you know him really well.
Yeah.
You've known him for years. What do you think some of his biggest challenges were to try and get the Repton vision up together? Because it's been 15 years plus, I think.
Yeah, I think obviously quite a lot of the areas have been, gone into disrepair really. So I think any estate like this, point one, you've got to have the money to do it. But also you've got to have someone like Martin. He's got the support of the Duchess. And for me, that's what we need is people that sit there and go, do you know what? I'm going to do this. Because there's so many of our big houses that are struggling, isn't there? And I think that's the lovely bit for Martin. He's got that support, and he's got a good team around him as well. And they all seem to sort of really love it, don't they? So
it's a passion. It's more than a passion. It's like 365 days a year. We're there. We'll do it. We'll get it done.
So I think he's got that support, which makes the whole thing a whole lot easier.
changing the subject slightly,
Yeah.
talking more about you, sir.
Yeah.
I have followed your career. I'm not going to lie.
Bless you.
2012 Chelsea Flower Show.
Yeah.
Rural Mural.
Rural Muse. Yeah.
That
yeah.
was one that blew me away.
Bless you.
It was my first time at Chelsea, and I was just, someone who was learning about gardening, trying to work out where people were coming from and their ideas. For me, that just spoke volumes. It had a flow, it had an energy. You first look at it, you sort of see these plants, but then the eye's kind of drawn again, and it pushes you through.
Yeah, they're sort of. Show gardens are interesting because there's the idea that you're you're viewed from the outside, but you're judged from the inside. So you have to hold the visitor and move the visitor, but at the same time you're being judged by judges who are inside your garden. So it's a strange way to design, but I think with them a lot of time they need to have strong narratives, and that was about another character. That's was about John Clare. And he was another person that you sort of looked upon as he was a peasant, would have been half starving in the winter, and this man cared about nature, wrote, you could call him a green campaigner. He sort of questioned the enclosure laws, farming methods, and then wrote about the detail of nature. And I suppose I just wanted to capture the essence of the landscape within the way he moved and lived, and so it got under my skin a bit, really. I suppose.
Under my skin
as
well. Because that leads on to my next question. You're clearly a gardener that taps into memories, into people. You're a people's person. And I say that with love. I don't.
No.
But in all the years you've been designing and looking at gardens, is there one that particularly stands out for you?
No, I honestly don't think. I obviously get asked the question a lot, and it's like I say to people, it's a bit like asking me if I've got 4 kids. Ask me what the favourite
like your
one
children.
is. I don't think it's. I just love looking at them. I think one of the lovely things been about the telly is they've sent me out on the road to lots of gardens that I would have never probably got to push the gate ajar and go in. And what amazes me in this country is how many. Not only the way that we love our gardens and we talk about them, but how many passionate people there are, spread absolutely all over
the Connor phase is growing. It seems all with Twitter and social side of things, there's a whole new world of gardeners out there who just want to be part of it.
I think there is. I really think there is. We talk about not having the younger generation come in, but then I was at Gardeners World Live last weekend, and I got stopped by loads of younger people saying, it's good, I love it, blah blah blah. And you think, well, we say one thing, but I think the reality, I think all the culture sort of plays itself down all the time. Whereas we maybe should just shout a little bit more as to
loud and proud.
Yeah, exactly. I like that, loud and proud.
We're nearly there. There's only a few more questions.
Cool.
I understand you've recently got yourself a polytunnel.
I have.
Right, I've got an allotment and I've got a polytunnel. An old boy in the allotment always said, never ask a gardener what he's got in his polytunnel.
Yeah.
But I'm going to take that risk and ask you, how's it going with your polytunnel?
The polytunnel's all right. So it went up a few weeks ago. Got the base in. It's half gravelled at the moment because we're just putting a gravel floor in the bottom of it. At the moment, the chilies have gone in there, the tomatoes have gone in there, and also I'm propagating a load of stuff that I want to plant out, wildflower stuff I'm going to plant out in my meadow. So at the moment, I'm forcing some of that on in there. But I'll be honest, the doors are on, but the doors are not got any plastic on them at the moment, so they've got no polythene. But that's all right, it's warm enough at the moment.
That's it.
So I'm hoping that'll be done by the winter. It's nice actually. To be fair, they're a great way, and they're a great cost-effective way of, like I say, adding to the, which is where we are in. I've got another area in the garden that we more or less treat a bit more like the allotment. It's sort of like a little mini area that, and we've put it in there.
That's brilliant.
What you got in yours anyway?
Chilies, tomatoes, aubergines, peppers. I've got some garlic drying in there at the moment. It's a bit of like a man cave. I shouldn't really say. I don't know if that's the right.
I even going back to training, I used to. It should sound a bit weird, doesn't it? But even going back to training, I used to love watering late in the day in the polytunnel.
So about 7. I do it about 7 in the evening, or if not, I do it first thing in the morning. But there's something special about the evening. I think maybe because you get the smells.
You get the sense. I don't know if that makes us a little bit sad. I don't know. But
loud and proud.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
What it is, loud and proud.
Yeah, there is something lovely about it. Yeah.
Nearly there.
Cool.
With all your travels,
Yeah.
with all the gardening shows you visit and obviously the TV work you do, you've had a busy season
Yeah,
this so far.
it's been mad.
Yeah. But what would you say, again it's putting you on the spot, has there been a particular flower, shrub or plant or vegetable that's stuck out for you this season?
Wow. Vegetable wise, I'm trying to grow agretti. Yeah, which is quite difficult from seed, so we're trying a bit of that. I might have to go and actually get my hands on some plants. And agretti is, it's got like I suppose a bit like a samphire taste to it. I saw it first time at Hyde Hall last year. He was growing it over there, and it's got that same sort of samphire look but thinner.
Yeah.
So that's veggie wise what we're doing, and I'm trying to push on my wasabi that I've had a bit of fun with. But plant wise, no, I've got back into peonies a bit, but I just love plants if I'm honest. So the biggest joy I've got at the moment with gardening is me playing with my herbaceous border at home. That's where
it's
you
at.
know, I say to Mrs. Frost, I'll only be half an hour, and then 3 hours later on, are you coming in?
Covered in mud.
Exactly.
Hands
you coming
filthy,
in? So I just love it. Really.
That's brilliant.
You know,
Brilliant.
like you said, I've been busy this year, so it's been a mad season. But so I've not been in the garden as much as I want to do. But it only takes me half an hour once I'm in it just to go and breathe.
That's it. It's about breathing, isn't it?
Yeah,
You
just
don't necessarily need to do anything, but just being in that environment just takes it. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Right away. No, it's fantastic.
Last question.
Go on.
If the dear beloved Jeff Hamilton was here today, and he obviously could see where you started and where you're at now and what you've achieved, what do you think he'd say to you?
Do you know what? I do occasionally think, well, no more than occasionally, I do think about it because obviously the subject is brought up. I think he'd have said, you're doing all right, boy, and then just give me a few words of maybe think about this, this, and this, you know, which.
That's what the teacher always does.
They
Can't always give you an A. They've got to do.
It's amazing though, isn't it? I think when I was there, I knew that it was a special time, but I don't really think I fully understood. You know, I was in my early 20s. I don't think I really understood the impact he was having on me at the time. And so much of what he was talking about was thought of being a little bit out there. And it's now become mainstream. You know.
Because from my point of view, as an outsider, you look at Jeff's achieved, his way he used to talk to camera, and I don't say it lightly. He is clearly running through you because
someone put it on Twitter last night. I didn't see the programme last night, but I was back at home and someone actually put that, which is, for me, I mean, let's be honest, he was absolutely incredible. So even to be talked about, and I've never been him. I mean, he was just, I think he was a one-off. If I'm honest. I think all I learned is from him is, whatever you're doing, just be yourself. At times he trusted me to do things that I look back, he trusted me to go to shows and sort of building his name, and trusted me to design stuff for TV and books and magazines, and you think, it's a big, you do it, don't you, when you're younger, you just get this, only when you look back and you think, he must have thought I was all right. It's sort of,
I think you're a bit more than all right. I think you've done okay.
But no, I just love it. So that's the thing as well, is that I'm lucky enough to be doing something that I love.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Adam, I know you're a busy man,
no, it's cool, mate.
We are done, but thank you so much.
No,
it's been honestly, it's been an utter pleasure to meet you.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
Have a great weekend, have a great summer.
We will.
I'll be watching your garden.
Exactly.
Watching what's going on in that polytunnel.
Brilliant.
But thank you again.
No, thank you, mate.
Thank you.
Cheers, pal.
Thank you. So what do we think?
This has been a real eye-opener for me because I didn't know much about this place, and we've been to a lot of garden shows, but I'm going to go out on a limb here and say this is my favourite garden show that I've been to. Wow. I really, really like it. It's got quite a unique vibe, I think because it's the personal home of the Duke and Duchess of Bedford. They're opening their garden up to the public, so it has a really very unique atmosphere that you don't get at some of the other garden shows, and it really is quite special, isn't it?
Yeah. I've been I can't think of anything else but say I have been blown away by the whole day, and that's not just what's here as a gardener to see and enjoy and the flowers. It's the staff. Every member of staff we've come across today have been so friendly, so knowledgeable. They've just made us feel very welcome. And that does so much for a garden show, any kind of show. I mean, if the staff are happy and smiling and welcoming, then you're going to have a good time.
And it's just set in the most incredible gardens. I think it's 42 acres, the Abbey Gardens here, and it's just breathtaking. And I would definitely recommend, if you haven't been to the Woburn Abbey Garden Show before, definitely come next year. It's their 10th year next year. It's a big year for them. And it's just the most wonderful place to wander around and check everything out. And also, if you can't wait that long, they seem to have events running throughout the year. There's a honey festival, I think, in September. They do workshops and courses throughout the year. So definitely come here, because it's really an amazing place, and it's been such an eye-opener for me.
Yeah. I mean, I've been smiling all day.
And he's normally really grumpy.
Really grumpy. But I've met some great people. I met Adam Frost, Win. I met Pippa Greenwood, Win. And I met a chap called Martin, who is, like I said, is the gaffer of this place, and the knowledge he has is incredible. I mean, I could have spent all day just listening to his stories and his mind and what he thinks of the estate and the plans and the future. It's, if you love gardening and you come here, ask for Martin. But I've just had a really good day, and I mean that genuinely.
We'll be back.
Definitely. There's more stories here. There's definitely more stories here. Right, I think we're done. Home time?
This show is on our doorstep, and I've been every year since it's it started. So, and it's absolutely fabulous. You come and see, plants, talks, the whole ambience is just wonderful.
Very chilled and a bit windy.
Yeah, exactly.
We're fighting with our stand a bit, but no, it's lovely. It's very nice here today.
Your first time?
Yeah, absolute first time here, and the band is amazing.
If you would like to know more about Agents Afield, then please sign up to our YouTube channel. We would love to hear from you and talk about all things gardening. Thanks for watching.